Have you ever read the children's book Stone Soup? That's what building a panel out of Greeblies is for me. Here I have a bunch of Greeblies that I got part of the Christmas exchange from my Secret Santa in the Star Wars Room Builders group. The first thing I'm going to do is test this motor and find out it actually still works. So whether I use it in this panel or not, I will find a use for it in the future. But how does this relate to the book Stone Soup? So in the book, these two men come into this area and they find this old lady living there, and they're hungry, and they ask her if she has any food, and she says no, and they go, okay, that's fine. Do you mind if we make some stone soup? And she goes, sure. And they start collecting stones that they say are going to do good. Those are the Greeblies. And then they come to the realization, you know what would make this better? And they start coming up with things like carrots and potatoes that you would add to the soup. That's kind of how I'd approach these panels. I'm like, these Greeblies would make a great panel, but what would make it better? So the first thing I thought of is I need to have something to mount these Greeblies to. I had in my collection this box that you see here. I bought this box after seeing Brian over at the Smuggler's Room use one to make a panel himself. But I don't want to mount everything to the outside, so I'm going to cut a hole in the panel. So I start by basically measuring out a rectangular hole that I'm going to put into the panel. As you can see here, I cheat. I just line the edge of the scale up with the edge of the box, and that's going to be the width of the outside edge. And then on the last edge, I decided to do a double width. I kind of lucked out. This worked out well. I did not measure the main board that's going to go behind here when I did this. But that's the fun of just making something on the fly. If you're going to cut plastic like this with a rotary tool, make sure you're wearing safety glasses. I'm wearing mine at this point, and I got hit straight in the glasses with a hot piece of plastic. So after I got the hole cut, I went outside and I sprayed up the main board with a flat black and let that dry, brought it in, and it fits perfectly in the top of this box. Due to pausing the camera and not remembering to unpause, I drilled 4 holes and put in 4 lights. Then I took another piece from the Greeblie collection. I believe this was either a fax machine or a copy machine of some sort in its previous life. All the parts that I have here. This was a part of the motor assembly that I took apart, and I just glued it in place using some black hot glue. This hot glue is again another remembrance to the Stone Soup. It's an item that I have because Derek from Van Oaks Props recommended this glue from Surebonder, and it works really well. So now I'm just taking different pieces that I have from the collection I got, and I'm just trying to make sure everything fits and looks like it belongs in place, at least somewhat, you know. But what's a panel without some switches? So I'm going to measure to drill a couple holes to run some lights to go behind a couple of switches. Here I have to apologize to Whitey's Workshop. His switches, they did not let the light through because the ones I have from him are a solid gray. I printed my own in a white, and the light will shine through. hindsight of trying to figure this out as you go is when you drill a hole to put wiring through and you can't get to the hole because there's already something glued behind it. But with a little finagling, I got it in there. These lights, there's four little white LED or clear LED lights, and they're already wired up to flash. So I'm going to put 2 on each side underneath the switches here. Just making sure everything fits before I permanently glue stuff down. These little lights are cool. I think I got them from Evans Designs. They have 4 speeds, 3 flashing speeds from a slow to a really fast and then a solid on. Now I'm deciding to add yet another switch. This is going to be a real switch, and I'm going to use it to turn on and off the 4 lights that you see off to the left of it. Here I'm just hand tightening it down. I'm going to use 2 nuts. The first nut is going to hold it in place, and the second one's going to lock down the first one so it doesn't swivel very much. Again, this is a thing where I just went rummaging through my Greeblies that I have on hand to find something that would fit and do what I wanted. You'll see here there's this little clear or opaque plastic piece that I'm trying to put the switch that comes with the Evans lighting part. Here I just popped it off. This was another one of the Greeblies that came. I got 2 of these. I'm just going to glue this in place, run the wire up through it, and then glue the button in the front of it. Another hindsight, I probably could have found a better way to mount the button. I could have 3D printed something. But I was trying to do this all out of found parts, with the exception of just a few pieces like the switches. Technically the switches are replicas of parts that I should have had from Whitey's workshop. Get the button glued in place, wait for the glue to dry, and now I can hit the button without it moving around. And it's time to wire the lights up to some batteries so that they work permanently when it's all together. The 4 lights here, I'm just going to wire them up in parallel. I'm just going to do them all together as one continuous loop. I'm not doing in series. There's pros and cons to doing series and doing parallel. I stick with doing them all at one time because it's easy and I don't have to try to figure out when I have an issue and one light's not working. I have some heat sleeves on these so that once everything's together, if I'm happy, I can just shrink that down and tighten up the wiring. The little lights for the white switches are going to be wired up to this little battery holder that holds 2 CR32 batteries. Six volts works pretty well for those 2, and then 9 volts for the other 4 lights. Tuck everything in. I just screwed it together with 4 of the screws that came with the case. Yes, I know these are Phillips. I ordered some socket head cap screws. They did not come when I finally decided to call this finished and produce the video. So what I ended up doing was just replacing these with 4 hex head screws, which will work for now until the screws come in. This is just Vallejo wash. It's like a rust color wash. You put it on. It doesn't look, it looks dark, but not that dark. And then when it dries, it just, I don't know, it looks to me like rust just kind of ran all over the place. So I'm only putting it around a few places. This is one of those things where how much weathering do you want to do? I like the oxidized look. That's a little comment for Sean over at Try to Finish Something. Here you see I've got the hex bolts that I am using. These are just long enough to hold the lid down, but it'll work until, like I said, I get the rest of the bolts that I really need. You'll also notice that there's a couple other pieces that have appeared. Right under the green light, that is the back right there. That is the back of a C3PO. And that little piece there at the bottom is a miniature version of a IG head or a light fixture head from a cantina. But with that, this is what it looks like. The lighting came out pretty good. I may make a little frame to go around the white switches just so the light doesn't bleed out, but I'm not sure yet. But with that, I'm calling this done until I get some socket head cap screws. Let me know what you think in the comments, and if you got these kind of Greeblies, what would you make with them? Thanks for watching.